Hey guys, how's it going? So today I'm going to talk about some Israeli firearms, and I'm not going to do an in-depth review on each one, but just kind of a general history and introduction to some of the Israeli firearms that I really like, and I think a lot of you do too. Now, go down in the comments and let me know which ones you would like to see a video on next, because I do plan on doing a standalone video on each one where I can be more thorough, but for now we're just going to kind of spend a few minutes on each one. Not go through a lot of detail, but I'll read the comments and you guys can decide which one of these firearms that I'll do a more thorough review on first, and then I'll just make my way through all of them because they're all fantastic weapons that I really like. And I'm going to go over a little bit of history, a little bit of the details, and also you're going to see range footage of most of the firearms in this video. So let's go back to the 1940s. Mid-40s, World War II is over, and Israel acquired a bunch of surplus weapons from Germany, and one of their main rifles at that point in time after 1945 became the German Kar 98K. Obviously these rifles were kind of divvied up throughout many countries of the world after the Third Reich was toppled by America and the Allied forces, and Israel, like with many other countries, acquired a fairly large sum of these rifles. Now, this is a 1944. This is a later World War II produced DOU 44 marked. And this is chambered in 8mm Mauser. While Israel would use these in 8mm Mauser, they would also rechamber many of them into 7.62 NATO, which is a military version, slightly lower pressured version of the 308. So they were using these all the way up and through. Around 1948, the Arab-Israeli War happened. Now, they were also still at this point in time using other bolt-action rifles, such as the British Lee Enfield. And here we have an Indian Ishapur produced. This is a drill rifle, but it's still an example of a type of rifle that may have been used. This being a number 1 Mark III, chambered in 303 British. Well, they fought the war in 1948, and the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Forces, they started to realize that they had a bit of a logistical problem. See, you've got bolt-action rifles, which were still okay for military use, but they were getting a little old. You know, bolt-action. Many were using semi-auto. Many countries were by then, including machine guns, right? So look, these weapons were getting a little bit old technology, and just the calibers and the logistics of all of it. Do you send your troops out with 7.62 NATO, or 8mm Mauser, or 303 British? Yeah, that's a logistical nightmare, right? So let's roll around to the mid-1950s. And in around 1954, the domestically designed and produced Uzi started to become a thing. Designed and started to get implemented at about 54, but really by about 1955, this became a mainstay for the IDF. Now, this is a 9mm blowback, open bolt submachine gun. The one that I have here fires from the closed bolt, and it's semi-auto, of course. But this is a pretty good representation of what the IDF would have started using, and basically starting to put away a lot of their K98 Mausers, British Lee Enfields, as well as many other weapons. Like I said earlier, it was a logistical nightmare. So we have a compact package. Originally this fired in full auto at around 600 rounds per minute. You can see it as a stamped sheet metal construction receiver with a removable and detachable grip module here. Polymer front handguard. It has a post sight here that is adjustable, as well as an aperture sight that can be flipped depending on the range. Now, this is a close range weapon, but it does have a 200-yard peep sight in the back, as well as a 100-yard. So 100, 200 yards, just a little flip in the back. Very easy to use. Now, this can be fired in a compact, almost pistol type form right here. Also, it has a buttstock that folds down and out, locks in, so that it could be fired from the shoulder for a little more accuracy. I mean, as much accuracy as you're going to get from a 10-inch barreled 9mm SMG, right? Now, a couple other things that are kind of cool about this. It does feature a backstrap safety, if you will. Kind of sort of like the 1911, right? The selector here, in this case semi-auto, but in the military version you can select between safe, full auto, or semi-auto. You can see it has a front sling swivel here, and the rear attachment point is on the buttstock. Sheet metal buttstock that's actually quite stable, and I don't want to quite say it's comfortable, but it's doable. I mean, this is a 9mm and it doesn't have much recoil. The gun isn't super heavy, but it does have a decent amount of weight to it. Nice and hefty, and again, not too bad to carry around, but again, very little recoil, which is nice for a submachine gun. Now, this is a direct blowback, so it relies on a very heavy bolt. I mean, it's just a huge square chunk of steel, and I can go over the internals and how this works a little more when I do my standalone Uzi video. But I will note one thing. 10.2-inch barrel, but you notice only like maybe 2.5 inches of it sticks out. And that is because it has a unique bolt design that actually has a channel that runs through the middle of the whole entire bolt, so that the barrel does not have to protrude 10 inches from the front like it would in some firearms. No, most of the barrel is actually hidden back, even though the bolt comes up much further, and there's a channel that allows the bolt to be recessed. I wouldn't quite call it a bullpup because the trigger is still in the normal position, but it is utilizing that part of the technology where the barrel can recess back further into the receiver. So this made it a very nice package at a 10.2-inch barrel that barely protrudes past the barrel nut right here, which is captive by a little, there's little like spurs on the nut here with a little detent lever. So 9mm SMG. This was very important for Israel because not only did it allow them to really get into, let's face it, 20th century technology, because the aforementioned Mauser and Enfield were really 1890s technology, and as venerable as they were, this was definitely, as far as fire superiority, a lightweight package. This was a really big advancement. Plus the fact that this was developed by Mr. Uzi himself, produced by the IMI factory domestically in Israel. This added a lot of morale, if you will, to the troops. Helped with the Israeli economy, and this was not only just a good tool in the battlefield, but it was really a patriotic, morale-boosting type weapon too. And you'll find if you read the history on these, this became a very, very important weapon in Israel for both of those reasons, really. So, here's the Uzi in 9mm, and I'm going to take that out on the range right now. Alright, here's the Israeli Uzi, 16-inch barrel, and I'm going to be shooting some 124 grain NATO Winchester white box. Israeli Uzi 9mm. That's another fun one. I'm having a whole lot of fun today, guys. That's a blast. Wow. Now, you're going to notice I was firing this with the 16-inch barrel. Now, this is obviously not an original Uzi. This is a semi-auto. This is called the Centurion Uzi 9 Centurion, made by Century Arms. And it ships with a 16-inch barrel, which kind of makes it look goofy. But I would note there was a brief period of time, believe it or not, in the 70s where they brought these back out into service and put long barrels on them to have them substitute for the FAL in some battles. So as goofy as it is that they, you know, take a small little barrel like this and extend it out to 16 inches and make it look goofy and stuff, there is actually a little bit of military correctness in that long barrel. But you can see that it shot just fine, very controllable, and actually quite a fun gun to shoot. So this came out in the mid-50s. Like I said, very important, still a classic icon to this day. Shipped to so many different countries and used by so many different countries, it's not even funny. Again, I'll discuss that more in the standalone video. Well, another rifle in the 1950s, and this is also one of the most famous rifles in Israeli military history. And this is the FAL. Now, this is a Belgian design rifle that Israel became one of the very early adopters. And this is a light barrel. It has about an 18-inch barrel. This is chambered in 7.62 NATO. Now, when FN developed this rifle, they had a couple early customers, which included Canada and Israel. Originally, the rifle was made completely by FN and sold to Israel. And then slowly but surely, they started making more and more of their parts, where by the time they were done with the evolution of this rifle, virtually all of it became domestically made in Israel, with the exception of the receivers, which Israel would always still buy those from FN. So that's kind of an interesting trivia. However, them being one of the very first adopters of the FAL, this still has many of the original features that Israel kind of stuck with over the years. They did a couple upgrades, and I'll show you at least one of them in a second here. But really, if you look at one of these Israeli FALs, this is actually kind of what the origin of the FAL was meant to look like. And then it developed into several different iterations used by many countries, right? They call this the right arm of the free world for a reason. Pretty much besides the United States, almost all of Western civilization and allies use this, with a couple other exceptions, obviously. So, in around the 1950s, mid-50s, this became Israel's official battle rifle, if you will. Now, this was known, like I said, as the right arm of the free world, and specifically in Israel, this was known as the Hebrew hammer, or the Hebrew war hammer, right? 7.62 NATO, which was a brand new cartridge at the time, developed off of the 308, and for many purposes, they're kind of sort of the same cartridge, but not quite. The 7.62 NATO is a slightly lower pressure round, although dimensionally, basically identical, or let's just say close enough to the 308, where you can pretty much interchangeably chamber them, although there are some firearms out there that specify 7.62 NATO, and you should probably stick to it. Now this was made by DS Arms. This is their officer grade, which includes new production parts such as the receiver, barrel, and some other 922R compliance parts, and an original, genuine military surplus parts kit. So many of the parts that you're going to see on here, including the iconic wood buttstock, wood handguards that makes an Uzi FAL an Uzi FAL, right? The wood handguard, all of that. We're going to see this has the tall rear sights that are real easy to adjust. Just push in a button here in the rear and it slides back and forth. So very easy to adjust with just a rear peep sight, and you just kind of go right up the ladder and change your elevation. The front has a protected eared front sight post that is also adjustable. Basically has an infinitely adjustable gas system. Wood handguard here with a stamped sheet metal heat shield in the front. We've got our sling swivel hanging from the front. It just rotates right there on the barrel right in front of this heat shield. And the rear sling swivel that pivots is fixed to the back of the buttstock. Just a stamped sheet metal steel butt pad there. Not the most comfortable thing, but you know what? This rifle really isn't too bad to shoot after all, actually. For a 308 7.62 NATO, this is actually pretty smooth. Now, when these first were adopted, they were known for just having the unthreaded barrel with no muzzle device at the end. And you can see here with the bayonet lug, they would actually clip on with the bayonet itself became the flash hider or muzzle device, if you will. It's kind of interesting. I don't have one of those like that to show you, but it's a pretty cool concept. I know the Mishiko channel actually has some really cool Israeli FAL videos. Go check his video out if you want to see that. But basically, the bayonet itself would act as the muzzle device. Now, as times progressed, they would upgrade these to threaded barrels with a muzzle brake, which is how this shipped from DS Arms. Feeds from a 20-round detachable box magazine, kind of the rock and lock, if you will. This is an original Israeli FAL magazine. DS Arms put their own floor plate on there. Again, just stupid crap like 922R compliance that manufacturers and importers have to follow. It features a carry handle, left side charging handle with a last round bolt hold open on an empty mag, and a lever here on the left side that can be pushed down to charge the weapon and put it into battery. Or if you have a fully loaded mag, you can just give it a rearward tug and then it'll go forward, just like many firearms that have a bolt hold open. So that's pretty cool. Now again, this was originally a machine gun. However, this is a semi-automatic conversion, so since it was made after 1986, kind of has to be that way, unfortunately. What's really cool about these DS Arms is they took the time and effort to actually put the correct markings on the receiver. When you see 7.62mm SAFAL, including the original Hebrew selector markings. And this has the fake automatic selector marking. However, you can see that there's this little ear on the top that prevents it from going far enough to go into the full auto. Now, this was not just done for United States legal reasons, but you'll actually find in Israeli service, they actually started putting these on many of these firearms because they decided that it was more effective in combat, probably just for accuracy reasons and, you know, rationing ammo more and training reasons. There's many reasons, but they decided that it was better to actually use these in semi-auto. So you'll find that even in real life IDF service, many of these light barrel FALs did have this little extension here on the selector to prevent the soldier from putting it into full auto. So another little piece of trivia. They didn't do it to all of them from what I understand, but definitely this was a thing. So we've got the correct selector markings there, which is pretty cool. And the other thing that's cool about this DS Arms build that I really like is, you know, I like my rifles to look as authentic as they can, right? Especially if they're a classic milsurp like this. But you're going to notice there's no import markings or anything that are visible from the outside with the magazine inserted. We're going to notice on the ejection side here some more correct markings with the Israeli proof marks, insignia, 7.62, and Hebrew writing, which I cannot read. Well, you legally have to mark the gun with the manufacturer's info, right? So that's where they got kind of clever. When you take the magazine out, you can now see the DS Arms legalities that the ATF requires right there. So basically, once you put the mag in this particular DS Arms build, looks like the real deal. It'd be pretty hard to differentiate just by looking at it, right? Between the real deal Israeli issue and basically the clones that we're all stuck with using here in the United States. So yeah, there's more that I can talk about this rifle, how it works and stuff like that, but I think that's enough information on it for now. Again, just let me know down in the comments. If you guys want to see a full review on this, I'll take it out and shoot it some more and talk about more of the rifle and its history and its variations and such. So let's take this out to the range and see how it shoots. Israeli FN FAL 308. These are going to be my first shots. Let's see what it does. That was fun. Let's see what it does. Boy, this thing's a shooter. DS Arms, Israeli FN FAL. Alright, so this is a full-size battle rifle, guys. It's got some heft to it. It's got some weight and length, but especially with this muzzle device and just the smooth operating system of the FAL, it was actually quite a pleasure to shoot, you know, really. I mean, it's got a little kick to it, but I could shoot this thing all day and not end up with a sore shoulder or get tired of shooting it. I like the ergonomics of it. The buttstock is what it is, you know, steel butt plate and all, but it's actually fine. So this is a really, really nice rifle, and I can see why they use these in Israel and many, many other countries of the world, obviously. Now, I obviously ran some 308 Wolf. Now, this is not technically, or Tula ammo, I'm sorry. This is technically not 7.62 NATO, but this is a modern production rifle, and you guys can do what you want, but I know this DS Arms is totally fine to shoot, you know, 308, especially something like this Wolf. Rather mild round, 308, 150 grain full metal jacket, steel case, non-corrosive, so there you go. As well as some of this old Malaysian military surplus ball ammo. Now this is the L2A2, 7.62mm. This was made in 4 of 84, so that puts it at about exactly 36 years old. And that's a little bit of what this ammo looks like. This stuff, before all of the recent ammo shortages and whatnot, was available rather cheap. I mean, really not much more than steel case price up until just a couple months ago. This has been on the market for the last couple years, and you know, it has a sealed primer, well-built ammo, 30-something years old. You can see the annealed case on it, and again, I had no problems with this ammo either. I always like to buy nice surplus ammo when it's available because it tends to be a little cheaper, military grade if you will. You get some of the features like the annealed case necks a lot of times, the sealed primers, which does, quite frankly, make the ammo a little more durable for long-term storage. And this was sold in still sealed, 50 cal style cans and 30 cal size cans. So I bought a few cans of each size just because this was a great deal on brass cased ammo when it was available. And maybe it'll come back. I don't know if this is dried up or not, or if it's just that we're in the middle of the ammo shortage. You know what I'm saying? So these basically served as the frontline rifle all the way up into the 70s. And then we started to see a couple other rifles introduced in Israel. So one of the main rifles that started to, if you will, take over the role of the FAL, or be introduced at first to fight with it and then eventually to kind of replace it, is none other than the US M16. And here's a real loose clone of a A2 chambered in 5.56 NATO. And this was obviously also the frontline service weapon for the United States, and newer iterations of it still are today. So this is a carbine. They would have had 20-inch rifles, shorter carbines, etc. But this is something somewhat representative-ish of that era, with the A2 upper with the fixed carry handle, the standard handguards, the front sight / gas block, right? A2 flash hider. And Israel ended up with a large number of M16s. Now, they may not be an Israeli-made weapon, but neither is the FAL, to be fair. So this is actually one of the most important firearms. And of course, this comes from the friendship / partnership / aid that the United States gave Israel, like we do with most of our allies, right? So they ended up with a very, very large number of M16s. And they really liked them, and they really liked the idea of going to a 5.56 NATO. But with them being in the desert, it presents a few different challenges. So they thought, well, let's look into a Kalashnikov design. Chambered the first round, that's a good sign. And that brings me to introduce the Israeli Galil rifle. This is a Galil ARM, featuring about an 18-inch barrel with more of an A1 style flash hider on the front. It comes with a bipod that also couples as a wire cutter, believe it or not, with bottle opener. Obviously, this is a Kalashnikov design, an AK if you will, but more properly, with its milled receiver, the angle in which the milled receiver is cut and formed, it's actually more of a copy of a finished Valmet, which is a Kalashnikov variant in and of itself. So this is chambered in the 5.56 NATO. You can see this is the JRA Galil rifle, which they did an excellent job as far as making it look realistic. You can see the Israeli crest right there, the Hebrew selector markings. Now, this is an AK, but it's probably one of the more advanced versions or evolutions of the Kalashnikov, featuring the milled receiver, lightning cuts on both sides, with more of that finished Valmet shape, if you will. If you've seen a Valmet, you know what I'm talking about. This has the selector markings for semi, full auto, and the safe position. And you can see this has the correct engravings. Although it looks real, this is yet again another semi-automatic that's built off of some USA parts, such as a USA made receiver by JRA, also, or a contractor of JRA I should say, as well as a new production barrel and some other 922R compliance type parts. It features the standard Kalashnikov selector here on the right side, but it also features a left side selector, which is basically just set with a couple little like linkages, if you will, where when you flip this, you're actually still moving the selector here. So it's basically the standard manual of arms for the AK if you want it to be, right? If that's how you like to run it. Or from the shooting position, right-handed shooter, you can just take your thumb and actuate the different, the different firing selections right here, which makes it pretty nice and convenient. That's a substantial upgrade, really. It still has the right size charging handle that's connected to the bolt carrier, but instead of it hanging off to the right like we're used to on an AK, it's actually upswept. So you can easily grab from the top here. It's got a little knob with knurling on it and charge the firearm from the top. Different ways you could charge this, right? So that's definitely one of the unique variations of the Galil. Instead of having the leaf sight, it has the sights connected back here to a heavy-duty, thick-gauge dust cover. And this has aperture sights that can be easily flipped, depending on the distance, as well as a set of ears that pops up for night sight shooting. On the front, we have a Kalashnikov style single front sight post. This is completely hooded in a circle, like the Chinese Kalashnikovs, if you're familiar. Most AKs have an open sight, but the Chinese completely covered it with a hole where you can put the adjustment tool in, just like this. It has a naked gas tube. It does still utilize a long stroke gas system and piston like a Kalashnikov, and you can see that the venting of the excess gases come off of the gas tube here in the front. It has a free floating handguard system. That's why if you notice a little wobble here, that's actually the way it was designed. The classic wood handguard in this case. They also made these with a polymer that looks identical. It's made of a black plastic polymer. Generally the older kits will have the wood, and besides those couple American parts, receiver, barrel, other various small compliance parts, this is built off of an original Israeli Galil parts kit. It features a tubular stock that's constructed of aluminum and steel that isn't as comfortable as wood, but actually not too bad. I find this stock to actually be probably more comfortable than just your little wire folding stocks and underfolders. Love underfolders, love wire folders, but This tubular stock is actually very comfortable. And you can push down on this stock here, and it folds over to the right hand side. So the weapon could be deployed and used in close quarters, in smaller areas, or you could pull the stock out. So it kind of clicks in place a little bit, but you don't have to push a button. You can just grab it and flip it out. To make it fold, you just have to kind of brace your thumb here, push down on the stock, and it does fold to the right. So you could shoot this compact, you could shoot this from the shoulder, or you could deploy your bipod and lay down and shoot from the prone position, or on top of a barricade or some otherwise cover that you were crouching behind. So makes this firearm rather versatile with the 18-inch barrel, decent amount of range. Feeds from a 35 round detachable magazine, very similar to the AK. We have a large paddle here that you depress, rock the magazine forward. This is again a rock and lock, just like all your other Kalashnikov variants. Shoots the 5.56 NATO. So it's not necessarily that the Galil took over for the M16. You'll find that they used M16s along with, around the same time period, up until kind of all of the above. Because even though Israel really has tried to consolidate over the years, you're still going to see that they kind of always have a little bit of array of firearms over there, just due to aid from different countries and treaties, and just it's always chaotic over there in the Middle East, and Israel's no different. So those of you that study that region of the world, you understand what I mean. Different weapons coming and going. But this firearm has been serving since the 1970s, all the way up through even modern days. And they may not produce this exact version anymore at IMI. They do produce a Galil Ace, which is very similar to this. And obviously, as times went on, they've switched over to different bullpups that you guys might be familiar with, like the Tavor X95, things like that. So yeah, this is another iconic firearm from Israel. This particular rifle is very well built. I really have no problem with this particular one at all from JRA. If you've been following the channel a long time, you'll know I had some problems with the first one, but Classic and JRA did make it right, and this particular one has been nothing but great for me. So let's take it out to the range. And one more time, down in the comments, let me know which ones of these you guys are most interested in. This video is going to go rather long. A lot of you have been saying, hey, we'd like a long history geeky type video. So here it is. But as you guys probably already know, I could do a 30-40 minute video on each one of these if you'd like me to. So if you guys want it, I'll share it with you, you know. Just about having a good time on this channel. And you guys know when I go out to the range like this, it's obviously costing me money. Patreon links down in the description. Patreon supporters are helping make this possible. Thanks so much, guys. And if you just have no money at all, that's cool. It's always free to watch here. Just give me a thumbs up, or you can go down and use my Amazon affiliate link. I get a small commission. It costs you nothing. Just a couple seconds of effort to click on my link. That's another way you can actually help me buy the ammo and these firearms for these videos that hopefully you enjoy. So I really appreciate the help, guys. Whether you're pitching in financially or just watching the videos, you guys are all cool by my book, so I appreciate all of you. Yeah, enough yakking. Let's take this out and shoot it. Alright, I got the Israeli Galil 5.56. This is the one made by JRA, the Galil Gallant. And I'm going to take some shots with some Wolf 223 steel case. Alright, that was fun. They say you're supposed to run 5.56 brass case through these. I just shot 223 Wolf, which is what you're probably going to want to shoot through these, nice and cheap, and man, that was a whole lot of fun. Alright. Federal American Eagle 55 grain M193 5.56. Alright, 5.56 brass case. Galil Gallant from JRA. Let's see how this Wolf 223 steel case runs through this Gallant. Heck yeah. Galil Gallant, no problems whatsoever. Let's try some brass case. Alright, 5.56 brass case. Alright, no problems whatsoever. Alright, shot flawlessly. This firearm's a pleasure to shoot. The longer barrel, the milled receiver, just the smoothness of this whole operating system. Very, very nice rifle to shoot. Plus, it's only shooting the 5.56 223, which is, man, let's face it, quite a bit less recoil than even a 7.62 by 39, which is also a very pleasant round to shoot. Now, I do what I do on this channel. These are my guns. I spent my own money on them. JRA will tell you to use 5.56 in this. Now, in theory, 5.56 may have a little more pressure, a little more power. I think a lot of loadings are actually about the same though nowadays. That's just my opinion. Between 223 and 5.56, it's a whole ammo geekery rabbit hole I can get into later if I need to, but let's just say I don't think they're that much different. But officially, they say 5.56. Now what I did, this being an AK, I took some Wolf 223 steel case out. Why? Because it's cheaper. B, it's an AK, and I pretty much run exclusively steel case through my AK, and this Wolf ammo is usually pretty good. Now, if it would have short stroked or jammed or something, I wouldn't have blamed the rifle. I would have switched over to just brass just to see what it did, but I have no problem shooting this through my Galil Gallant. But officially, according to the manufacturer and the owner's manual, they want you to shoot 5.56 NATO, which is what they did shoot over in Israel. But for a lot of firearms, I found this particular ammo works just fine, especially if it's in a 5.56 AK. So That's just my experiences, what I'm doing, and I just want to add the full disclaimer because I'm not an authority on anything on here, guys. If you don't want to shoot steel, don't. It's awesome. I just tell you guys what I do, and just hanging out with you, like how friends do, right? When you're in the garage and the one guy's like, hey man, did you try out this Federal XM193 brass case 5.56? Yeah man, I love it. What do you think of this? And then people talk about it. So yeah, I shot this through my Galil, no problems whatsoever, as well as brass case. Same thing with earlier with the FAL. I had no problem running some of this Tula ammo 308 and then some 7.62 Malaysian surplus ammo. That's my thing. Hopefully it helps some of you guys. If you would never ever let this stuff touch your rifle, that's cool. We can still be friends. It's just, I don't mind the steel case for most of my stuff. So there you go. Alright, well, there's a few Israeli firearms for you. Got out to the range. I'm looking forward to some more range videos soon with one of my good friends that you guys probably know from the live streams on Fridays and in the comments. So stay tuned and you're going to see some video footage of me and my buddy Jeremy Wilson hanging out. I know a lot of you guys were praying for him, and a lot of you guys have become good friends of his over the last year or more on my channel. So if you guys want to see some shooting videos, a couple buddies out at the range just having a good time, stay tuned. More range videos are coming very soon. Alright guys, thanks for watching and have a good one.